The American two-party system is on the verge of collapse, or at least a minor setback. Third-party candidates never get any vote share. But 1992 saw a strong third-party candidate. And he wasn't just making a little noise. He was leading in the polls heading into the summer months. A victory by Ross Perot would change the American political system forever. But then suddenly, Perot vanishes from the race. And over the coming years, he'll fade into increasing obscurity and unpopularity. So why would a frontrunner remove himself from the presidential race? Perot claims he was blackmailed in July 1992, but others have their own theories.
Outside, looking at the stars, staring.
Good evening. Welcome to this third and final debate among the three major candidates for President of the United States. Governor Bill Clinton, the Democratic nominee, President George Bush, the Republican nominee, and independent candidate Ross Perot.
We can take this outside, looking at the stars, staring in my mouth wide. I ain't letting nobody stop me this time. Every single
Oh yeah, also, before I forget, Ross Perot was an extremely short man. Not that that matters one way or another, but yes, that is one thing we're going to want to note here. 5'4", potentially 5'5", somewhere in that range. You know, he'd probably be listed as 5'7", 5'8" on a basketball roster, but yeah, it wasn't even close to that. So 1992, the incumbent president was George H.W. Bush, and he was coming off 8 years of the Reagan presidency. He was Reagan's VP, and he was kind of riding on that popularity. In the middle of Bush's term, he was the most popular president ever, approval rating-wise. The Gulf War had helped with this some. And the feeling was that his re-election was all but a sure thing. I mean, an incumbent with approval ratings in the 80%, upper 80% is just crazy. So none of the big-name Democratic politicians really wanted to enter the race this cycle, and assuming they would just lose and kind of lose their shot at their presidential run. And Bush was actually so popular that SNL made a skit. It was called something like, well, the sentiment was it was all these Democratic politicians arguing over who should be the nominee that cycle, but they all want someone else to be the nominee because none of them wants to go run and lose to Bush. So
Campaign 92, the race to avoid being the guy who loses to Bush.
If the Democratic Party were to make me its candidate in 1992, it would go down to its worst defeat in history.
Oh, come on, Mario. You're probably the best candidate we've got. Please.
that's just kind of shows what the feeling was at the time. So this is partly why Bill Clinton got a chance this cycle. He was a younger guy, a governor of Arkansas, and wasn't a big name at all at the time. But everyone assuming whoever the Democrats put up would just lose kind of opened the door for someone like him. And then heading into the final year of his presidency, Bush's popularity starts tanking. He had a few things happen. The economy started to downturn a bit, which is going to hurt any incumbent president. And he had the 1990 tax bill, which hurt him because in his prior campaign, he had promised no new taxes. He had the read my lips line.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
Also, there's an incident in January of 1992 where he vomited on Japan's prime minister. I don't know how much that moved the needle, but it's a pretty bad look for a president if you want to promote an image of strength. So his popularity's sliding, but at this point it's too late for any other Democrats to get a campaign off the ground. They would have had to have that in the works, a year ago by this point. So now the race looks more open, but Clinton is the one who had organized a campaign and already had it going. So he's pulling away from the field and looking like the front runner for the Democratic nomination.
He was married, wasn't he?
Yeah, what was her name? I don't know.
It eludes me.
Yeah, there was a first lady.
Rhonda? Is it Rhonda Clinton?
Rod. Yeah, something like that.
Oh yeah, Rod. Something Rod.
That can't be right.
Is it Rod Clinton?
It sounds right, but that can't be. We'll circle back
We'll
to it. We'll have someone look that up.
Look that up real quick.
So, he's kind of right place, right time, because he'd already organized a campaign to challenge the president, and then he starts becoming unpopular. So now he's like got an actual chance. None of these other Democrats he would have had a hard time beating in the primary or running.
And this was before you. Just to clarify, this was before you could start your candidacy at the convention.
At the convention. Yeah, this would have been before
this
that
was
point.
before that,
Yeah.
okay.
They had a whole campaign process and primary process, things like that.
So just a little different, okay.
Just a little different than it is
that.
today sometimes.
So when Bush's approval rating started going down, Clinton was already the nominee, or they were still in the primary process?
Yeah, I think his approval just kind of started gradually going down. And then what really makes Bush's approval go down is when Ross Perot, this Texas businessman, starts chiming in on things. And he is quite anti-Bush, mainly regarding the economy. He helps Clinton in this campaign in a way because Ross Perot is a successful businessman and had been on TV over the last 5-10 years. You know, people kind of knew his name and had good name recognition. And he had this authority to attack Bush on the economy because that's kind of his arena, where he has the expertise to do that. And so when he starts saying all this stuff about how the debt's out of control and how Bush is mismanaging things, then that digs into his approval and hurts Bush a lot more than, you know, a 45-year-old governor from Arkansas coming in and trying to attack on the same things. It wouldn't have had that legitimacy because Perot, I mean, throughout the whole campaign, he's mainly, when he does attack or does criticize, it's mainly just Bush and not, I mean, makes sense because Bush is the president. He doesn't really have a lot to
go off
criticize Clinton on.
Yeah.
So things get rolling along. He has kind of this fun outsider vibe to him, I would say. He's campaigning a lot on the budget, the national debt. He would bring up a lot.
What was Clinton running on? I mean, what was his...
Change.
Hope and change.
I don't know about hope.
Just change.
Change.
Like economy
is, or... So Perot has such these high poll numbers when he enters, and he's just talking.
So when's he get in?
I think in February he goes on Larry King, and he kind of announces in a roundabout way, he's like, "Well, if you guys want me to run so much, you guys go get the signatures and get me on the ballot. And I guess if I have to, I guess I'll humbly accept. I guess if you want me to." So that's kind of his tone the whole time. Like, I'm just doing it for these people who want me to make a run at it. And apparently all these people want me to, so I'm going to.
And everybody's saying, why are we in this mess? First thing I'd like you to do, all of you, is look in the mirror. We're the owners of this country. We don't act like the owners. We act like white rabbits that get programmed by messages coming out of Washington. We own this place.
Is there any scenario in which you would run for president? Can you give me a scenario in which you'd say, okay, I'm in?
Well, number one, I don't want to.
I know, but is there a scenario?
Number two, you know, if you're that serious, you, the people, are that serious, you register me in 50 states. And if you're not willing to organize and do that, then this is all just talk. Stay with me, Larry.
Are you
I'm saying to the ordinary folks, if you're dead serious,
start
then
committees in
I want to
Florida,
see some
Georgia.
sweat. I want to see some sweat. Why do I want to see some sweat? I said it earlier. I want you in the ring.
So he does that in February and has lots of support. So he had been gaining tons of support throughout the spring, but then on July 16th, he kind of surprises everyone and announces that he's not going to be seeking the presidency. And he gives some reasons at the time that people aren't quite buying.
Now that the Democratic Party has revitalized itself, I have concluded that we cannot win in November and that the election will be decided in the House of Representatives. Since the House of Representatives does not pick the president until January, the new president will be unable to use the months of November and December to assemble the new government.
So it basically says, you know, my issues have been brought to light and both parties are now talking about it. The Democratic Party is now looking strong. Clinton is doing well in the polls again. I don't think I can win outright, and I don't want to send this election to the House because that would be too disruptive to the country, and I love my country so much. So that's kind of the reason he's going with. But what most people think why he stopped was he was kind of getting criticized for the first time around that time in his campaign.
Mr. Perot, you say you're not running because this would throw this into the House of Representatives, but what about the reports of turmoil in the last couple of days? How did that play into your decision today?
It was insignificant.
Insignificant?
Yeah, it was nothing. Question right here. Go ahead.
You say to the volunteers who are going to be very disappointed about this and say, you got us into this, and now you couldn't take the hit and you're couldn't take the heat and you're a quitter.
Well, people can say anything they want to say. I am trying to do what's right for my country.
You know, obviously, once you become the front runner for the presidency, it's not going to be all fun and games anymore.
Or skeletons start falling out of your closet.
He was kind of this, you know, beloved outsider, like, oh yeah, someone else.
Yeah.
But then, so it's fun, but then he starts actually getting criticized, asked to come up with more specific policies on things, and people think he just didn't like that, wasn't used to it obviously, and didn't like that criticism and didn't want to go through with keep campaigning.
Yeah.
So he just quit. He also refused to play like traditional politics. He had these campaign managers who wanted him to do, you know, run these attack ads, do all these things that campaigns kind of need to do, you know, like it or not, but he didn't like doing that kind of stuff and refused to do it. And down the road a bit, he doesn't say this at the time, but a few months later, he's gonna go back and say, well, the reason I dropped out back in July was because I was blackmailed. So we'll get to that claim when he makes it in October, but that's kind of what was going on. So when Perot drops out, Clinton immediately jumps in the polls, and Bush's numbers stay pretty steady. So it's kind of a Bush versus anti-Bush vote. Clinton and Perot were splitting a bit of the anti-Bush vote at the time. So he said he's out of the race, but he's still polling decently well. I mean, especially for someone who said they're not running. And as the months go by, we get to late September, and he sees he still has support. And also he sees that his volunteers actually got him on the ballot, got the signatures to get him on the ballot in all 50 states. So he says, this isn't too bad. Maybe I'll get back in the race. So this is early October, right before the debates are getting ready to start. And this strategy kind of works out somewhat well for him. You know, who's to say if he would have kept his lead, if he stayed in, you know, if he starts getting criticized.
Yeah, because then
all this attention turns to him. And like, is he really fit? Yeah. So he just avoids that whole part of the campaign and then jumps back in right when it's time for kind of what he's best at, talking directly to people through these debates. And he starts running those 30-minute infomercials on, he would just buy time slots on network television stations.
Which I don't think that's never really been done.
No.
Before or since, right?
No, I don't think so. It would just be him at a desk with all these charts that he made himself, going through them, explaining how you're getting screwed or what the problem with the economy is. So, because in the debates I was watching, at the end he would always plug, "Catch me tomorrow. I'm going to be on NBC tomorrow at 10 Eastern."
It's in your hands. I wish you well. I'll see you tomorrow night on NBC, 10:30 to 11 Eastern.
That's awesome.
Apparently got tons of 10, 15 million viewers.
Really?
For some of these, yeah. Just
people say he won 2 of the 3 debates. Won the first one and the third one, which, I don't know. I listened to all of them. It wasn't like a clear winning. Clinton did pretty well in all of them, I thought. Perot got he would get some laughs and cheers a lot more than the other guys. You know, you could kind of tell he had more crowd support, or a big chunk of them was all about the debt and deficit.
What was it back then?
$4 trillion.
$4 trillion. A measly $4 trillion.
It was only $4 trillion. But I think part of the reason that was such a big issue was because that's what Perot was talking about and how he became popular. So then it forced everyone else to talk about it.
If you will read carefully what we were saying in the spring, and you will see the same words again and again and again uttered by both parties now, because they know that's what the people want to hear.
Well, it probably went up a lot under Reagan, and then Bush, I would think, is all the...
Yeah.
Well, they did all the military spending trying to... Well, and effectively they bankrupted the Soviets, because then the Soviets were forced to keep up, and they couldn't.
And it actually went, I think, ran a surplus for a couple of years under Clinton.
Probably
you can see it goes down all of Clinton's years.
Oh, really?
But probably because it became such a campaign issue, you know, you felt like you...
I'm sure that was the last time.
Make all these Perot's talking, and then you end up making all these promises while you're campaigning about how you're going to curtail the deficits, and then it's like, well, I guess we'll actually do something about it.
So his poll numbers begin to climb a bit again. He's still nowhere near where he was as actually leading in a couple polls as he was back in June, but he seems like he will be a force in the election. He gets back polling into the double digits. And then the issue of why he dropped out in the first place comes up again, of course, and this is when in October he claims he was blackmailed by the Bush camp. He says it's one of their dirty tricks. They blackmailed me. I didn't want to talk about it at the time, but yeah, they had doctored pictures of my daughter in compromising situations that they blackmailed me with.
Mr. Perot still hasn't answered a lot of questions about the so-called Republican dirty tricks.
Mike, I think that we want to put that whole subject behind us.
On there, hold on one Texas minute. Now, hold on. Thank you, Sharon. Now, imagine the nausea you would feel seeing a picture of your daughter on the eve of her wedding, your own flesh and blood altered in this sick fashion. Take a look there.
Yes. How do we know that this picture came from the Republican Dirty Tricks team and not from your own organization?
Now, didn't I just tell you where the picture came from? Huh? Have you seen the picture? Did I just start talking Portuguese up here and not know it?
So it's hard to know what to make of all those claims. I think most people feel like he just made it up because he kind of had a history of making claims like that to, like one time, well, so like in the 70s and 80s, one thing about Perot is he did self-funded missions to Vietnam to like look for any remaining prisoner of wars, and he was like really involved in this effort to make sure all the POWs were actually out of Vietnam. He didn't trust the administrations in the years since the war that said they had gotten everyone out. So one of these claims he had made in the past was like, one night there were 5 Vietnamese hitmen that hopped his fence and were on his property trying to kill him because he was a dangerous guy who was trying to get prisoners of war out of Vietnam or something. But that was also a claim that he had made in the past that no one believed.
Listen very carefully. 2 years ago, and I have not revealed this until now for reasons I will not go into. 2 years ago, in the middle of the night at my home in Dallas, I was awakened by a disturbance outside on my lawn. So I went outside and engaged in hand-to-hand combat with 4 men and a small dog. Now,
so the final election results go about how all the pollsters thought it would go that night. Clinton wins pretty handily. And Perot, he doesn't win, of course, but he still ends up with 19% of the vote, which was remarkable and is by far the most by any third-party candidate, really, in the modern era or in the 100 years before or since 1992.
The interesting thing was he split exit polling or polling showed he split the vote exactly evenly between liberals, conservatives, and moderates.
Oh.
Like it's 20% liberal, 20% conservative, and whatever percent moderate voted for him. So that was interesting.
So as far as who killed Ross Perot, mainly himself, I would say. He kind of killed his own chances by dropping out. He never seemed quite sure if he actually wanted to be president or not. He did feel pretty strongly about his ideas, and I think he enjoyed the attention and enjoyed that his ideas were resonating with people. But yeah, big congrats to Ross Perot. Pretty cool he was able to get that much of the vote. This has been 55 Folks, number 16, I believe. Would you look at that? We're rapidly nearing the 1/3 marker. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you around.